really, really good to have you back with us for our In Conversation With series. The last couple of times we've had some people chat about our theme on Love Where You Live. So this morning with me is my dad, Trevor. You all know him as Trevor, and most of you know him as Pastor Trevor, but I'm going to call him Dad because that's us. So it's been really good hearing people over the last, I guess, few times talking about our preaching theme, Love Where You Live, and really, although that's been our theme for the year, but how that's so part of all our work.
Yeah.
And the last time Andre and I were talking about way back when the church started, and really, it's always been there, Love Where You Live.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to hear some of Andre's story about the very start. So I suppose I was thinking it'd be really good if you could share a bit about how we came to Carrick, even as a family, as a church.
Yes, I know what you mean. Well, I've heard people not arguing but discussing when did the church start. 2nd of the 2nd, 92. Was that the second day? Was that the second Sunday? Was that the second week? Well, in reality, this church started 1998/1999.
Right.
That's when it all started for me. And that was the time between then. You could put it like that's when I conceived the vision.
Right.
1992 is when the baby came into the
89,
world.
so 89 and
Sorry.
88 and 89?
80,
you said 90?
No.
Yeah, the way back even
89,
further.
way back further than that.
Goodness.
89, 99.
Yeah.
89, 99. It's that long ago, it's hard to say. 89 is like forever. But that's where it started,
Right.
And when I think about it, it's like God was drip feeding a bit at a time into me all those times. And it grew a little bit, died a little bit, grew a little bit, died a little bit, grew a little bit, died a little bit. I remember in Mosley Methodist when I was taking a group of young people to the youth fellowship, and one night I brought in a missionary, and the missionary came and he spoke to them, and as he would suggest that maybe they would like to join the mission field. And the minister, Sean Cleland, came in, and he said something which I thought, oh, fuck, why'd you say that? Ruined it. But he was right. At the end of it, he said, listen, folks, don't go into the mission field, don't go into anything unless there's absolutely nothing else you can do. And I thought, are you saying if they want to be a joiner, if they want to be an electrician, if they want to be an artist, want to be a teacher, do that? But what he was saying was, if you find there's absolutely nothing else you can do, you're compelled to do it.
You're so passionate you can think of nothing else.
That's what he meant. Of course he was right.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like for me. Kept thinking, kept asking myself, kept asking God, kept talking about, kept watching for signs, praying on and off. I wasn't praying about it continuously, waiting to see what happened. That was 88, 89, went through different things, went through the Haven, which is a great place to work and learn a lot of stuff. But it wasn't till I came home from Carigna, which was then became the Proclaimers, that would be 1990.
Yeah.
That I first spoke about. I said to your mummy, do you think it's wrong if I want to start a church? Of course she said, what did God say?
Oh, of course.
Tell me what. She was always the brakes to my accelerator.
Yeah.
But I didn't move too fast because that was a lot of years, that thing growing and stuff, and watching it grow. And the difficulty is working in the Haven. It was a fantastic place, and listening to the stories of Jim McKechnie, of how God worked with him, you could copy that easy if you were silly enough to do that, which would be good. He was a good man, but I didn't want to copy for the sake of that. I didn't want to copy what the Haven was doing because they were working for God. That's what I wanted. From the moment I was saved, I wanted to work for God. I did not want to sit in a pew. I did that, but I wanted to work for God. So I could have been in danger of copying somebody else. And from the moment I met Bob Gordon and the Keen's coach, then we eventually got the bus. Was that a copy? I had to watch that all the time. I had to fight that all the time to make sure it wasn't a copy, to make sure it was right. And the only way I know it's right now, I look back and see how God said yes all the time, by different blessings, by how He done it, how He organised it. It's sometimes you sit back and look at these things. I could tell you so many stories, but we wouldn't have time for all the confirmations that came in those 4 or 5 years, and then the situation. And you have a situation that if I was to say to somebody, for instance, who I would ask me, okay, you done that, give me some advice. this is what you'd have to do, in my opinion. You find yourself in a boat with a whole lot of other Christians, and you find yourself in a sea, a rough sea, and you see somebody walking towards you, and somebody says, is that Jesus? Or is that a ghost? Mm-hmm. This is what I was saying. Is that Jesus? Is that a ghost? Is this me? Is this, what's it all about? What's the thinking behind all this? And so you say, like Peter, if that's you, Lord, tell me to come. Mm-hmm. And he says one word, come.
Yeah.
And you step out of the boat, and you look around, and no other Christian got out of the boat with you. Ah, right. And you know what? You don't doubt.
Yeah.
You're not going to sink because Jesus said come. Mm-hmm. Peter had to go through that to teach us all.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you don't sink. Peter says, or Jesus says come, his hand's there, you're there. And so it's the beginning of it all. And sometimes, you would say to yourself, why me? What's this all about? What on earth is this all about? It's what I want to do. It's what I want to do. But he made it work.
Yeah.
And only he can make it work.
Yeah.
Only he can make it work. It's like that poem, I've said it before. God moves in mysterious ways and wonders to perform. Mm-hmm. It's good when he plants his feet upon the waves.
Something about the storm.
I know
remember the last time.
I know it. I know it. And what can happen is God, not manipulated, but God moved things around. So I was extremely happy in the haven. Mm-hmm. They made me a pastor. Oh, that's what I ever want to be. Yeah. Forget everything else. But God moved things around that would move me out. And that's the situation where we all go through. We go through things, and the last of that poem is, the bud may have a bitter taste, but sweet may be the flower. And that's what happens in life. Everybody goes through something that's a bitter taste at the time, but when the outcome comes, when God's in it, it just works perfectly. And I can look back and say, Lord, why me? What's this all about? I've seen people step out to do what they believe God's saying. And I believe those people were right, but it just didn't work out. So that's why I could never pat myself on the back, because it's his vision. Mm-hmm. He done it. He worked it. He brought people along. And I'll tell you something about a vision and a visionary. God makes, and I'm not talking in a soulish way now, for goodness sake, no way. But God makes the visionary attractive, and he makes the vision even more attractive. Yeah. Do you know how I can prove that? I proved it quite often, and history has proved it, church history. But a couple of weeks ago you spoke to Andre, and she said, I didn't know whether I wanted to get involved with your father and your mother being pastors, because I knew them so well. But one Sunday night I was preaching over there in the old
centre.
And you know how I used to walk up and down between the congregation, either giving words out or finishing my sermon or even singing with the worship team. And I shared the vision that night. I shared it totally, what I believe God has said, how he brought us to here, that point and what we're going to do, and I believed that, boom, boom, boom. And she stepped out in the back row as I walked down. I didn't even know she was in the country. Right. And she said, I want to be part of this. God makes the visionary, first of all, attractive. You're not going to join a church or a Christian organisation where you're going to work and be part of it if you're not attracted to the man or the woman. Yeah. You wouldn't do it. Yeah. You wouldn't even come to church if you're not attracted by what's going on. But then he cancels that, because none of us are attractive in God's sight. But he makes the vision attractive. Yeah. You yourself wasn't sure about all that either. And that's what happened. We're all the same. Yeah. Because it was when I first met Jim McKenzie, it was Mosley Methodist men's breakfast. Right. And I thought, he's got something I want. Attractiveness. Yeah. Right away. Yeah.
I think when someone's bringing you life, you can't help.
Yeah.
You know, whether it makes sense, whether it lines up, whether your family think you're doing the right thing or not. There's just something that draws you.
There's something,
and I think that's it is a really important thing. And someone who has got life coming out of them and is giving it to others and creating it. Definitely. And I think that's really look at it.
We wanted, when we sold our bungalow, which was, in my opinion, a lovely bungalow, and I'd worked hard on it and spent a lot of money on it. To go and live on a farm.
I remember.
So you daft.
I was 16, 17, and I was about a year older than Caleb was, isn't I? I was a teenager, and I was thinking back, Mum, when we came to Carrick, was the same age as I am now.
Is that right?
And the thought of me doing that and uprooting our kids in another town. Because we didn't know Carrick. Well, I didn't know Carrick.
I didn't know Carrick. I worked at Carrick in schools.
Yes.
And things, that's about it.
Yeah, because you knew some of the principals and
I knew some of the principals. I did.
So, I mean, obviously I know reason, but do you want to say a bit about how we actually came to come do this in Carrick? What brought us, from Tilpatrick to Carrick to plant here?
Well, as I say, God started, while we were in the Haven, God started to move things about. Unknown to me, it was God's hand. And that's the third time I've mentioned Trevor Steele. He'll be getting promoted, or Margaret Allen will be taking him in the ribs. But Trevor Steele came and he said to me, "I'd like to do a work in Carrick. Why don't you come to Carrick? We'd like to do a work in Carrick." Because he come to Haven, and he brought 20 odd people in the minibus, Lars McGrath and Laura. He brought them all up every Sunday. We were going twice on Sunday, once during the week for midweek, at the men's fellowship. All sorts of things were going on. And Trevor caught the vision of what was going on up there and said, "I'd like to do something in Carrick." Now, he didn't mean a farm,
no,
and I didn't mean a farm, but he was thinking of work for God. And so that's why we came to Carrick. And when we come to Carrick, Mummy and I came down and we got in touch with the council, got in touch with the housing executive. Nobody would let us have a church. Schools wouldn't let you meet as a church then. It's changed now, isn't it odd? The leisure centre wouldn't let us have a church there, and there's been a church in there since. Things have changed. But there was a guy in the leisure centre said to me, "Have you tried the community centres?" Now, living in Glengormley and the life that I led, I never heard of community centre, or maybe I heard of it, but I never thought. So he put me in touch with community centres. We got one there across the road for the night time in Wheelburn for this morning, and that's how we came. But we came down, we started the church, and you were here. I would say you, Lynn, or you are Lynn, Gillian, James, your mummy. You're the originals, the most long-serving people in it, except for Larry. Larry didn't come at the beginning with us, they come very, very close. So Larry would be the most longest-serving original here. Now, well, that's a blessing or not, I don't know. Just joking, Larry, just joking. No, he has been a blessing. I'll tell you something about down there in the new church. Larry built the walls between the kitchen and the next room, and between the next room and the toilet, between that toilet and that toilet and that toilet and the next room. He built those walls, and people think Larry doesn't do anything.
Hard work.
Of course, I make sure everybody knows he's the laziest one. But he did all that. So my advice to the congregation is don't linger in the toilets too long.
Don't lean on the wall.
Because some of them walls. No, he was very much part of that.
And I think that's something that I noticed growing up, sort of into young adulthood, was that how much everybody was really involved in building this building, the extension, and the new building for the church. It's been anybody who can do anything, come and do it.
Very much so.
And I think that's important for people to contribute. I think you said in your sermon yesterday about giving, you give what you have to give, and it doesn't need to be money, it's time and skill and expertise.
Very much so.
That makes such a difference.
Very much. And talking about help and that sort of thing, you know this. You have the visionary. Whether it be a man or a woman or a couple, it doesn't matter. You have the visionary. But a visionary can't operate without sustainers and enablers. And so when I say God moves things about, Andre Martin may not have thought she wanted to come here, but God was moving her here, and she turned out, she fell in love with it. She always, when you said a couple of weeks ago, she likes to be involved. So she came in and she was an enabler, and my other enabler was her mother. Both enabled me to get on with the vision in two different ways. And then the sustainers were yourselves, and the whole church who sustained the vision. You carried the vision by simple things as work and money and encouragement and coming and just being part of it. And I felt, and I still do, that we don't have a congregation. To use a word that Ian uses a lot, we have a family. And it just grew and moved as a family. And like a family, sometimes we fell out, sometimes we didn't. And like a family, some people move away, sometimes we don't. I look at those early men and women in the early days, and I could easily say, and probably did then, "Lord, why'd you bring them in and take them away?" But if we look at it, try and look at it from God's point of view, with hindsight, we can look at it. God brought those in to get those people in to get it started.
Yeah.
Brought them in to get it started, to get it off the ground. And of course, I didn't know it was getting it off the ground. I thought this was just for life. I thought all those early people were with us for life, and we were with them for life. You know, you live and learn. But he's moved them to different places to help other churches.
Yeah.
And now he's moved a lot of new folk in. They don't have to do the work that the first crowd did, but they have to maintain it, sustain it, and add to it.
Yeah.
And that's why a vision needs something. Like I said, you can't maintain yesterday's vision.
Yeah.
It goes on, it just gets dry, it just gets flat, it's no good. You have to maintain it.
Yeah.
And so that would lead me on to talking about James, the new pastor. I didn't want to retire. I didn't feel I was old enough to retire. Well, retire, you're joking. But it was me that, I felt it was me that initiated that, but it was really God. Because one of the times before I went to America to preach, James and I used to have a habit of having coffee before I went up, well, the day before probably. And so I found myself saying to him, how's Ian doing at church, and how's Gareth and those boys? Because I asked about those two because they were in to web pages and things like that. And when I ask the question, usually I've got a reason behind it. He says, yeah, they're very good at that. We're doing. I said, well, change this church, bring it into whatever century you happen to be in, bring it in and change it. That wasn't me retiring, but it was the beginning of it. I didn't know. Again, God was drip feeding me.
Yeah.
Because I remember way back in the day, it took James and Holly 12 full months to accept the leadership of the youth. 12 months. Now, I wasn't talking to them all the time. I'm not that silly, but I talked to them over the period. Mostly to James because he was around more, but Holly was involved, and hopefully he was talking to her as well. And they don't move fast. These people don't move fast. There's something in it. And I'm glad too, because people can easily say, oh, it's a family-run affair. In fact, I've had that said to me. You know, I've had people say to me, that whole group up there, that whole up the front's a family affair. And they're talking about the praise group. So I thought, that's amazing. I didn't know Dawn McCollum and Jackie McCollum were my two daughters. And Stephen, who married Diane.
Oh yes,
I didn't know he was my son. I felt to go to them and say, I don't want the family allowance from you parents. You've been keeping it from me for years. So people see you, saw James, saw Johnny, but they didn't see the rest. Yeah. And so that can be labelled like it. So I'm glad James took his time.
Yeah.
And then I saw in him what he had, but I wasn't 100% sure. You're never sure. So I coaxed him then to take the sharing time on Sunday mornings to get him up front to talk. Because he's like most people, he didn't want to go up front and talk. And as the man says, he'll just shut up ever since. It just keeps going. But that's the growth. See, I knew what you could do. Yeah. Because I felt it in you, I seen it in you. And
I was always torturing
you related to me.
Ideas and
that's it.
Dreams and visions.
That's it. This is it. And this is what's needed.
Yeah.
This is what's needed.
Yeah.
So that turned into me, long story short, eventually saying to James, look, there was a step in between. After Roy left, I think it was about maybe a year, it could be around 10 months, a year, 13 months, I don't know. I said to James, I want to make you assistant pastor. He says, what should we do with needs Dublin? I said, well, I want to make you that. So then it was IGO or somebody who came through, we got them to ordain them and stuff like that. Then it was a step a couple of years after to make him pastor. Well, when I made him pastor, I don't know, somebody said to me, so where's the vision? Is he a vision? Something like that. I said, I don't know. Maybe we don't need a vision. We started the vision, we moved on. But when I sit and look around this place, it was like he had been just released from a cave. You know, mad. Everything changed at once. Even simple things like colour schemes in different ways. You know that, you were part of it. Because he said nothing before that. So I started to think, he said absolutely nothing along those lines at all. He must have been waiting for me to die or whatever. But so I think the time has proved that right. Not me, God. I don't want to use the word manipulate, but God moves things, moves people, moves
Well, he
ideas.
orchestrates, I mean, a creator of anything, like, I suppose you would use like a potter manipulates the clay, but they bring it into the place where it's supposed to be, and I think that's it's not manipulating as in a devious sense, but you work with the parts and the pieces, and I think, and we've always been, even from years ago, whenever we always made James do those dramas, and he never, at the practices, he never did them right, or he never gave it his all, and then he would stand up in the night and he'd go, oh, where was this the whole time? And I think that's, when you know someone, I have to give, and I think it has been a pleasure, and I think even for us a little bit intriguing to watch that actually come out, and to see who James is, and how his family's grown, and to see the leadership really be there, and
that's true.
And you do have those worries, what will people think, is he too young, will people when something changes, you're always weighing that up, but I think,
I must admit, for me, the change from me to James in the church was so smooth, I hardly seen it. I mean, I don't think I wanted people to come and say to me, see the pastor, he's not doing the way you did, nobody said that. I thought, they actually like him better than me. He's doing better than me. That's just not what I wanted. So it was so smooth. And then I had the usual thing, you and Sandra need to leave the church. I thought, that's not going to happen.
No.
Because my whole heart, my whole life's in this church. And I know good people have left. And then come back 6 months later to give the pastor a break. I know another good man, James does on Shankill Road. I shared with him, he shared with me. He stayed when he handed the church over to his assistant pastor, and then he eventually said to me one day, we're having coffee, I stayed as long as I could, and I didn't want to leave, and there was no problem between us. He said, but I just didn't see things going that would work for him if I was still there, and so he left and he went to the church around the corner. Nice man. So I was fortunate that way.
And I think that's worked though, because I think it's been good for James to have that support of someone who's experienced, knows what it's like, and you've worked together already, so you have talk to each other and make that.
Well, the other thing that would have surprised me, really, looking back again over this last couple of years, I never bought it in. I thought I'd bought in a lot more. I thought I would take, because I would get the name probably being a control freak or something, but when he took over, I done my best to keep away. And to the best of my knowledge, as he's seen it different, I kept quiet and kept back. And there was nothing I never agreed with, but there's things I certainly wouldn't have done that way. Or I certainly wouldn't have painted this place, There's certainly a lot of things like that, but they turned out to be okay. And I honestly believe that was God changing me in some visible, divine way. That was it.
And what about retirement then?
Well,
I know you will, so I know what you're going to say, but I think I'll be the same.
I basically hate it, to be honest with you. It depends, I suppose, in the mood I'm in, because I'm not behind the door saying to people, I hate retirement. I find I have no purpose in life, what to do, where do you go. I know Andrea is a self-confessed workaholic. Well, I should say a little bit herself now, but she used to. Now she's got older, she's got other interests, probably different. I'm not sure if I was a workaholic. I may have been without knowing. But then you have nowhere to go, you have nothing to do. And then there's a big lull in the building there, a very big lull. Because the big lull came in the 2.5 years when James took over, because he concentrated on this. And so the concentration was all in this. And when money came in for the building fund, it was put in the bank for it. And so recently there, when James got the go-ahead from God to start there was money there to start. So it got me a bit more involved. And he's good at ringing. He said, we're doing such and such tomorrow, do you want to come down? Now he knows I'm going to sit there like a big fat pudding. He knows I'm not going to do any work. I was on the bench, I can do it. But he brings me down. And Andre's good at saying, we're doing such and such, you want to come down? And so that keeps your interest. Your mummy, in a sense, never retired when I did. She still works in the office. That's good, that's good. And she chooses when to work and when not, that's good. And she's a different kind of fish from me. And I just always wanted to do that. And so retirement for me was, I could understand why some people got some sort of mental disease out of it or whatever. Which I didn't want that to happen to me. But I thought, when you have no purpose,
Yeah.
And when you tell yourself that a couple of times, and then the devil starts telling you even more, you think, oh, what's going on here? So I left it too late in life to lose weight and start to go for walks. So I say to all you young guys, keep on doing what you're doing, because it creeps up on you. Another thing I would say to James, if he ever asked me about retirement, plan for retirement. Plan to get the church you're working in to give you a room. Plan that there's something for you to do. You say, you only get preaching every 5 or 6 weeks, and that's good because all young ones need a big chance. And nobody else wants you, the church wants you. America's closed to me now. But for America to open up for me again, the way I'm talking about opening up, you need finance to go. When you get there, sometimes a lot of the churches are good and they pay your way and all that. But you can't. I want God to do it, but don't want it. So, but then I just had to change and do little bits and pieces on the bench and make things and come down here. So, retirement, I didn't give it any thought. My thought was retire, step out of the way, put a new pastor in, let this church keep moving. But I didn't think for myself,
It's like interesting sort of wilderness time, isn't it probably? And I think that because we do go through those times where we just, where am I, what am I doing, what's the point of being here, and all the doubts, and you have yourself and all the negative thoughts that come. But then sometimes you don't notice what's going on around. And you were saying about being, James and Andrew bringing you down to the church. You probably don't realise that James is not just giving you something to do, but it's a safety and a comfort to have someone who knows. Because there's things he'll want to check out, you just know him, at least Dad's here to, I think you don't know those things. But and so we've moved into this period of having a theme for the year of Love Where You Live. When we look back, everything that you've said, we came to Carrick. It was hard to love somewhere that you didn't know, but we came with a love, to start something. Can you think of or talk a little bit about how we came to Carrick with that vision to love and serve? Why was that? Why we came?
Right.
It's a tricky one.
It was easy for me to love coming to Carrick, although I never knew it. And I can only put that down to the fact that it sounds a cliche, but God was in it. God made it easy. And I didn't even begin to think, do I like this or do I not like it? I just loved it because I loved the work. See, as I said before, from the moment I was saved, I wanted to work for God. And that's why I had to watch on my copy and Keats, coaching my copy in the Haven, and get all that thrashed out. I had to prove it to myself that I wasn't. And so, because of the work, I come to work, I was so excited to do all the work, and that's it. So, and then as I say, Trevor asked me to do a work down here. And then when you guys came around, we started to find the need that was in Carrick, socially, spiritually, and that's the same as any town. God brought people in. God brings people into the church for a purpose. There's people who need help, and there's people who want to help, and then there's people who need help and want to help, all within their own one person. They want to do both. I can't really. It was such a wild, quick time of vision and starting things off.
I suppose that with the cafe here, because people maybe don't realise, we're sitting here now in a room used to be a cafe, and it is sort of set up still that way for the ministries. But when we opened the cafe, it was 1997 because Sophie was born that year. I was pregnant with her when I started working and peeling the vegetables. In 1997, that's 23 years. We opened here and the cafe was a great meeting point for people in the community to get to know over the years. So many people that have come in. Oh my
goodness, yes.
And just showing that love in our relationship with
this
people.
Is it. I mean, James had a new vision for the church, Love Carrick Fergus. Mine was vision title, if you want, to serve the community. And that's what brought us to Carrick originally. That's what the whole thing was, to serve the community. And so to serve it, we built a cafe. We built what was called in the early days, on half of this building, the drop-in centre.
That's right.
I was a bit late with the drop-in centre. It happened in the 60s and it moved away. So we changed it. We got a cafe. We opened it up. We changed the name. I'm a great believer. If something doesn't work, change it. Not the vision, but change the aspect. Change the colour of your advertisement paper. Change your logo. Get things out. If you keep the same thing before people, they say, "What's that again?" You need, anyhow, we changed it. I got the cafe going, and as you say, the cafe was really a big thing in the community. Lots and lots of people out there still talk about it, and when we finally closed, after 20 odd years, because of the lack of volunteers, it was amazing that we had volunteers all those years.
Over 20 years.
My goodness, 3s and 4s and every day, whatever. But people out there would stop me. I was going across the car park and say, "I missed that. When are you going to open?" I'm going, that's true. But
I suppose it is in the timing of that, I suppose as you said, as God moved the pieces around, we just all of a sudden found it hard to get volunteers. And I think, you can look at society and reflect on, well, there was a lot of women about in those days who were working and all that stuff, which is all true. But I think the parts were moving for something new to come. And when you look back, you can see that. But at the time, you fight those frustrations, you fight even, is it a failure, and all that stuff that in all of us is what happens when we have to end something and start something new. But I think now that we're sitting in here in this time of COVID where nothing's open and all this work's going into this building and new ministries have started, and now we're at a pause. And I think probably it's the best time for anybody in the world to sit and reflect on, am I in the right place? What's going on? What is happening in my own desert, wilderness, lost type of time? What will I come through the end like? Who do I want to be, and where's God leading me? And that's, I think what you said there would probably really resonate with a lot of people right now who maybe are in the middle of their jobs or careers, but have just this time of, where are we? What am I doing? And I think
God has to do that. There has to be a removal of things, and for instance, over the years, and you'll have got this with your young people, people will come to me and say, "I believe God's calling me into such and such, or moving me out, but are calling me away usually. But God never calls you out of something until there is something. And God doesn't call you out into a vacuum. And I've had that people say to me. In fact, every pastor will tell you this story. People will come and say, "God's moved me on in the church." "Okay, where are you going?" "Don't know." All pastors will tell that story. But God doesn't call you out of a vision, or like the cafe, and call you into something, call you into nothing. So there was 20 years we'd done what we were set out to do. I would love to see it still running, but that's not what God wants. So clearing it out for the new part of the work, the new start of the thing. And look what we're doing here now. I mean, there'll be, the baby bank will be up here. Mothers and toddlers, parents and toddlers, whatever people call it now, that'll be here. There'll be different works going on in the different rooms, because the new rooms, the big rooms, are getting ready for everything else. And that's the way it should be as well. And there's a more of a need now, or there's more of an awareness now of churches being involved in social work. Churches have been involved in work to help people, talk people, the counselling, stuff like that. So different rooms, different setups. And it's of its time. The cafe, the Open Door Centre was of its time. That doesn't mean we won't serve people coffee and stuff, but as a cafe will not operate anymore. And other churches can start things and change things and move things forward. God knows what He's about. He knows what He's about.
And all we have to do is be present in this moment, and then He leads the next moment. And I think that's probably something you and I over the past would have struggled with, of like, what's next and how do we get there, but it's hard to be in this moment.
That's right.
I think that's something I've really come to learn, is just be here, do what needs done here, and then otherwise you miss what God's doing right now, and that's
you said earlier, but I think you said earlier, but sometimes you go through things, you ask some questions, you're wondering with their doubts and things like that. Everybody has that. Every visionary has that. You can claim to be a visionary, but you can only claim to be a successful vision when you look back and still a lot of work, and then you say, "It wasn't me, it was Him." And doubts come. Those are the times, every Christian, those are the times you hang on to God more and more. I saw an interview about 3 or 4 weeks ago on YouTube with Mother Teresa, and an Southern Irish television station, and she was talking to the girl was asking her questions just like this, And the girl then said to Mother Teresa, well, it sounds like you had a lot of hard work, a lot of struggles and different things and a lot of dark times. I said, well, you never had doubts. She goes, oh yeah. So what do you do, she says. And Mother Teresa said, that's when I cling to Jesus.
Yeah.
We all have that.
Yeah.
And if we don't, then we've lost the whole plot.
Yeah. Because it's not about us and our ability. I think that's everyone's bigger than us, and we just come to do our part. And
No, it's a very true thing. God does move in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
I remember one day in the Woodburn Community Centre on Sunday morning, the church was there, and I happened to I used to do a lot of walking those days. Don't know whatever happened to that now. But I got round the very back. And not only the very back, I got to the very corner for some reason standing there. And I looked at you guys, and you're all standing with your hands up in there, a whole 5 or 6 rows of you worshiping and hands up in there. And I thought, God, these people wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. That's the first thought. Because I started with church and I came. Mm-hmm. But it always goes back further. Mm-hmm. There's the chicken and the egg situation, you know? Yeah. And so that's you brought him here. Yeah. But why me? What are you doing? I mean, and you're waiting to get an answer, or you're waiting to feel, or you're waiting to get proof that you're the one for it. But he doesn't do that. No. He just shows you bit by bit. Yeah. And looking back in hindsight, it's a great thing. Yeah.
And as I think in youth it's very easy to say I'm the one, I'm doing this because I've got these gifts and I'm called, but then you get older to look back and go, I'm the one that did it because God asked me to, and I stood there and said yes, and then brought all my failures and fears and doubts and things and worked through them on the journey of
I've never doubted that I've no proof, nobody's got any proof. I may not have been the first one God called to open a church in Sunnylands. Who knows if people, or they ask, or they weren't asked, but I know I'm the one that said yes, and I know the one he blessed to do it, and that's it, that's simple as that. Yeah. And that's all we all can say, you know, we do that.
Yeah. Well, it's been really good hearing, going back over some of those stories and sharing your insights and things, so I hope you all enjoyed that, and really I encourage you to look back over some of the interviews that we've had over the last few weeks, because you can really see how God is joining the dots of those, and I suppose in this time of COVID giving us something really to hope for and cling to. And thanks for tuning in, and you can tune in again in 4 weeks to see who we have with us then. Thanks.
Bye. Happy Christmas.
Yes, Happy Christmas.